Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you are watching this. Welcome to another week, y'all. We in the week 3 of 2024. So this week, I wanted to take the time out to tell you all why we use TaxDome as our primary resource. Okay, so I'm gonna go into my story time bag and break this thing down for you all. For those of you who know, and those of you who do not know, I am a former federal government auditor. Not from the IRS, but I did work in OIG shops, Office of Inspector General shops. So that's like the CPA firms of the government, okay? And so in those settings, what we did was we used technology to our advantage, of course, right? So we had electronic work papers. Now, I came through the transition where we did have paper stuff and we had to fold green folders and do all this crazy stuff, right? So I went from when we were writing stuff in Word, printing stuff out, doing all these crazy things, right? Till when we got electronic work papers. And in our electronic work paper flow, the system that we used was called Teammate. It allowed us to be able to collaborate collectively, the entire team. You could be able to see what work papers were done. You could plan out your audit projects from beginning to end. You can see the entire cycle. Your report was in there, etc. We used Teammate primarily and SharePoint at the locations that I worked in. When I came out full time, and even before then, I was using a legacy system that I had identified from a former accountant that was working on my husband's and my business and personal stuff. I saw his format. I liked it. It allowed me to be able to run my business virtually and in an electronic manner and keep close hold. So y'all, even though I got tons of paper in this office, like if y'all saw, y'all be like, girl, right? It allowed me to still do that. Okay. And so I like to touch paper when I like to touch paper, but then I want to get rid of it. But it allows me to keep the workflow. So I needed a system that works better than my legacy system. My legacy system, I could communicate, I could get stuff, but it took me going through some bumps and bruises to realize that bandwidth wise or whatever, what clients were necessarily telling me was happening on their end was not always getting to me and vice versa. And so TaxDome wasn't around at that time. But during a couple of years ago, right, when the Panini and all this kind of stuff right before, TaxDome came about. And TaxDome is a godsend because it is the backbone or the cornerstone of Total Tax Experiences Practice Management. I'm going to say that again. It's our cornerstone for our practice management. Now, it allows us to be able to not only see workflows, but it allows me to make assignments. It allows me to be able to do communication with clients and my team. It allows me to see the stages that we're in. It allows me to understand where we are, who hasn't finished things. I can go back and see the history. That's why I want you all to do, when we're doing communications, to give me a whole different conversation title and thread, because it allows me to go back and find that specific conversation. It is truly the cornerstone of our practice management. It allows us to see workflow and so much more, right? Yes, it does have the storage, the electronic storage, right? It allows me to do work papers if I need to. But the reason why I need this is because if my firm is ever audited, I need to be able to show our workflow, our processes, our procedures, our SOPs, and understand how we're doing this, what we're doing, because we do back this stuff up, y'all. Not only, now we're using somebody else's software, so this is not proprietary to TTE. We are using someone else's software, but the ability, it allows us to be mobile and the ability to be able to, if I need to get the data, I can get the data because I'm backing this stuff up on hard drives, external hard drives that we're locking and have passcodes and all the things, right? Because I need to make sure that if anything ever happens, if you ever need documentation in the future and you don't have it because you didn't download it, that we have it. It is called my contingency plan. If anything ever go down, if you're audited, if we're audited as a firm, So much so that even all my historical documentation for my own personal stuff, for my businesses, and my personal stuff with my fam is in TaxDome. And the reason why is because God rest his soul, literally, the person that we worked with at the time that helped me figure out how to do systems and stuff like that when it came to the tax practice, um, has passed away. And he passed away some years ago. And because he had an infrastructure and a system, his wife was able to get in, work with his team, and be able to pick up as seamlessly as possible. Now, of course, they had their grieving period and everything like that. And I want that same situation to occur if anything were to ever happen to me or someone on my team. If something were to happen, I want my family, my husband, my good bestie BFF business partner, right? My accountability partners to be able to support my husband so that if we got to get up and go, or if something ever happened to me, that they can be able to maneuver this and actually follow what we've laid out. So it's a lot of thought put into this. So for those of you all who are working with us for the first time or wondering how we really do things and why it takes a couple of weeks to get your stuff and go through the process, is because our workflow, before we ever truly you see me reviewing anything, there's about 4 or 5 stages that y'all go through in our workflow process before it ever ends up where it's ready for me to do that final review in that video. Okay? So you'll get some communication once you submit your organizer. And if there's anything that looks off, my team and I are looking at it and we're like, hey, this looks off. We need you to do this, fix it. So we are communicating with you along the lines, but keep in mind, we don't work on the weekends. And so because we don't work on the weekends, my offices are closed. Why? Because I'm a mother of 4. And at the front end of tax season, I also am a Girl Scout troop leader, and I got to be hustling cookies with the girls. So I don't work on the weekends during busy season. I do not. I don't work on the weekends, period, because I need a time to regroup. But we are busting our tails for you during Monday through Friday to get y'all what y'all need so that we make sure that it's good, and then we regroup so that we can show up better the following week. And so we have automations built in. We have workflows built in. And I really want you to understand why we use TaxDome the way we use TaxDome. Mind you, TaxDome is cloud-based. I don't own it. And if there's any problems at any time, I need you to let me know so I can reach out and get help with tech support. I do have this trusty dusty, y'all. I got my ecosystem is Apple except for my phone. Okay. But I do have TaxDome at the hip at all times. So y'all like, why is she so responsive? Because at the times, it's on me. I have access to it from the client side as well as from the practice management side. So like we have backups to backups to backups. I got multiple computers. I got stuff backed up. I got ways to get what we need to get to so that we can make sure this thing runs for you all. And so that's why we use TaxDome. If you have not downloaded the app, when you first log in at the bottom, it tells you Apple and Android. Please download the app because it'll allow you to be able to communicate with us just like you do with your FaceTime and iMessenger. You just have to get into the actual app, right? And so you'll see that. And turn your notifications on. I don't have a whole bunch of notifications on, but I'm not going to lie to you. My TaxDome notifications stay on and on and on and on. They stay on. Okay? So I just want to let you know why TaxDome is the cornerstone of this business until someone else come along. But right now, that's what everything is. That's how we operate. That is our workflow. That is how we are seeing everything in this business. Now, I have other stuff in the tech deck that we use because we not only do we do tax preparation, we solve tax problems. Yes, if you know anybody who has tax problems, we solve those. We work on the federal and state levels to solve these tax problems. I'm an enrolled agent. I have the ability to do that. I can pull transcripts and so much more. As well as we have our accounting system because we do accounting, right? And there's other things that we do. But primarily, we are an accounting and taxation firm, and the cornerstone of all communication happens in TaxDome. All right. Next week, we'll be breaking this down a little bit more so y'all can see stuff. Talk to you later. Peace.